I'm back, and today we're talking about a couple of Bandai handheld LCD games that had a unique and amazing feature. Out of thousands and thousands of different LCD handheld games that were produced in the 80s, only 5 of them had a dual layer LCD screen. To be clear, I'm not talking about games with double panels adjacent to each other, I'm talking about stacked or layered LCD panels. I've got 4 of these games right here, and I'll tell you how they work and show you what's inside of them.
Let's all turn on the tube. This is hot dog soup.
Right around the late 70s, the first electronic handheld games were made, and this continued well into the 80s and even a little bit into the 90s. If you owned a handheld LCD game back then and you took it into school, you were immediately the coolest and awesomest person there. Most people had never played an electronic game in their house, let alone one that you could put in your pocket. Remember that in the early 80s, most people didn't have any electronics in their house, apart from household appliances and perhaps a television. No one even had a microwave or a computer. If you owned an electronic game, you literally had the future in your house. It was amazing. The most well-known manufacturer of LCD games was of course Nintendo, but many other brands made them too. Each brand made an effort to make these games more and more interesting every time. They came up with ridiculously elaborate things. 2-player games, intricate cabinets, huge plastic panels with a tiny little screen in the middle. It was sometimes ridiculous. The biggest problem with these LCD games was that you could only have one single game in one device. And this was because the LCD screens that were inside them could only display one single scene. The individual graphics on an LCD screen could not move, could not change, could not animate, they just could be switched on and off. That's it, on or off, nothing else. This of course means that every game could only consist of one screen or one scene or one level, if you will. So of course dual screen and even triple screen handhelds were created, which would expand the size of the playing area or indeed create games with multiple different stages. Nintendo even tried using paper backgrounds in their Crystal Screen series, which featured a see-through display and came with printed backgrounds that you could hold behind the screen to get some variety in the game. Bandai, however, was the only brand to take these see-through LCD screens one step further. They stacked them on top of each other to create games that had dual scenes or levels. They even used this feature to create some depths, as the second screen would of course lay deeper than the first one. Bandai made 5 of these games in 1982 and they were called the Double Panel series. The most well-known one was Zaxxon, which was licensed from Sega, and the other 4 were designed by Bandai themselves. Not only did these games have layered LCD screens, they were also solar powered, apart from Zaxxon, which was battery operated. So Bandai didn't put 1 but 2 innovations in handheld electronic games. The solar panels of course solved the problem of batteries. These tiny little batteries that LCD games used were really very expensive in the early 80s. The biggest feature of these games, however, were the double panel. In 4 of these games, the second layer would immerse the player in an entirely different experience than the first layer. In Zaxxon, however, both layers would be active simultaneously, creating a 3D depth effect. So objects could be closer to you or further away. So, let's have a look at the games. Thanks to the double panels, Frankenstein offered a scene where you would be a scientist taking care of the monster and keep it alive, where in the next scene you would play as the monster itself, dodging wooden logs and bombs and trying to save the scientist that was kidnapped by spies in the first scene. In Airport Panic, the first scene would have you try and board a plane while being pelted with bombs thrown by criminals, and also dodging police cars and ambulances. After boarding the plane, you would have to shoot the boss and free a lovely air hostess without shooting the regular passengers. In Amazon, you would climb a mountain and waterfall while dodging rocks thrown by apes and cavemen. At the end you would enter a cave, going deeper and deeper while avoiding creepy animals and stabbing bats. Terror House offered a graveyard scene in which you would stab bats and dodge headstones until a bridge would appear to the next stage. There you would fight various monsters including Frankenstein to make your escape. Zaxxon of course recreated the famous isometric side-scroller where you would shoot enemy aircraft high up in the air, or where you could fly low, deeper into the screen and then strafe or bomb vehicles on the road. These games offered a unique and special experience compared to other brands, but why didn't they make more of them? I couldn't really find any information about this, but I can think of a couple of reasons why. Of course, they could simply be more expensive to produce. I don't know what the retail selling price of these things were, but I remember that a friend of mine had 2 of them and my parents told me I couldn't have them because they were way too expensive. So yeah, I had to make do with the cheapest plane and tank game that was available. Another reason why these double panel games wouldn't be more widespread could be that they didn't look that impressive laying around in shops. From just looking at them you wouldn't even know they had multiple scenes or levels. It could even be very disappointing if you opened one up and found out that it seemingly only had one display. And was the double panel branding a scam? Did they mean to include the solar panel as a panel? Is this 1 or 2 panels? Or 3 even? It's confusing. Not to mention the Zaxxon one. It says double panel at the front, but you only see 1 panel. And of course we know what's going on, but you know, a kid in a shop, would they realize what this meant? Not to mention the parents, who had to pay for it. It was also a drawback that these games couldn't be used as alarm clocks. They were solar powered, so in the dark they would simply switch off. Even more ridiculous, Zaxxon did have batteries and it did have a clock, but it didn't have an alarm feature. So let's have a look on the inside of one of these devices to find out how these LCDs are stacked on top of each other. I have to be careful though, because these games cost about €100 in a working condition, and in a mint condition they will be 200 or 300 euros, and if they're complete with box and manuals etc, you could easily pay 500 to 600 euros for them. I have a cheap, slightly damaged airport penning right here. It's scratched, so it isn't worth much. So I'm willing to sacrifice this one, you know, for views. So let's open it up and see what's inside. Oh, I feel a little bit like Big Clive now. Shout out to Big Clive. Hello, I'm Big Clive. I have a large beard. An interesting LCD game from the 1980s. Not only is it solar powered and it doesn't even have any batteries, it has a very special LCD display. It is special because it's not just one LCD display, but it's 2 of them stacked on top of each other as to provide some sort of 3D effect, or indeed to make the scene change completely while playing. Maybe I have to open this up with my spudger, but I think, yes, I think I can just use a very tiny screwdriver. Where did I put my screwdriver? One moment, please. So here is my tiny screwdriver, and I think I can get the screws out very easily without destroying this. Let me see, how can we get this out? Let's use another tiny screwdriver here to see. Oh, it already goes like this. So here it is. Put the screws out of the way. There's 6 of these screws, so I'll probably need some time to get them out. All screws are out now. Let's see what happens. Ah, there we go. Okay, so this is a completely separate front unit. Put this to the side. Here is the screen. I'll zoom down a little bit on it. Let me see. Yes, so this is the game. Here are the controls. Here are some buttons. And of course, we have the LCD screen here. And I hope they're not glued together or something. Maybe they are. No, they're not. Okay, so here they are, 2 screens, separate. Of course, they're connected here. Can I turn this on? Can I turn this on, this thing? Okay, so I managed to switch it on with a little wet finger here on the contact. So here are the 2 displays. As you can see, the first one is now showing, oh, there it switched the scenes. Interesting is that the score is visible here. I don't know if you can see this, but the score is on the top left here. And even if it switches to the bottom scene, the score will remain visible on the top screen. So the score is still visible here. I don't know if you can see this. I don't know if the camera catches that. And the rest of the scene is below there. So there you go, a Bandai electronic game from the 1980s featuring a double-layered LCD display. Like I said earlier, these Bandai double panel games were really very unique. Only 5 of them were ever made out of thousands and thousands of LCD handheld games that were produced. I really liked them, and I was a little bit surprised that I couldn't find any information about these displays or photos of the insides of these devices. So I have posted a couple of photos on my website, hotdogsoup.nl, link in the description. Click it, look at them, be amazed, and of course there's also tons of other interesting things on my site. I certainly hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did. Please consider liking, subscribing or posting a comment. It's all free. You can do that for free. Why not do that? Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.